In June of 2023, the North Atlantic lay calm and endless, its waves concealing a graveyard of steel and sorrow 2.5 miles beneath the surface. There, resting silently since April 15, 1912, was the RMS Titanic, the most famous shipwreck in human history. For over a century, the tragedy of the Titanic had fascinated millions, drawing explorers, historians, and dreamers alike. But fascination can blur into obsession, and obsession can demand a price. On the morning of June 18th, 5 men boarded a small experimental craft called Titan, a submersible operated by OceanGate Expeditions. At the helm was Stockton Rush, a 61-year-old engineer and entrepreneur whose bold vision sought to make deep-sea exploration accessible to private citizens. Rush was no ordinary adventurer. He was a man convinced that innovation thrived not through regulation but through audacity. He rejected many safety conventions, arguing that at some point safety is pure waste. This philosophy would become central to the story that followed. Beside him sat Hamish Harding, a British billionaire adventurer who had already broken aviation records and journeyed to space. For Harding, exploration was a way of life, a compulsion to go farther than anyone had gone before. Alongside him was Shahzada Dawood, a prominent Pakistani businessman, and his 19-year-old son, Sulman, a bright university student, nervous but eager to share this once-in-a-lifetime adventure with his father. Completing the crew was Paul-Henri Nargeolet, a French Titanic expert and veteran deep-sea explorer who had spent more time near the Titanic wreck than perhaps any other person alive. Together, they represented ambition, expertise, and the boundless human desire to see what lies beneath. At 8 a.m., Titan was gently lowered into the Atlantic waters off Newfoundland. Inside the cramped 22-foot-long tube, the 5 men sat cross-legged, shoulder to shoulder, breathing in the recycled air of a vessel controlled not by traditional navigation equipment, but by a modified video game controller. The dive would last around 10 hours, or at least that was the plan. But less than 2 hours after descent, contact with the surface ship, Polar Prince, was lost. Silence fell over the Mission Control Center. Initial hopes were that communication would be restored. Technical glitches were common in deep-sea expeditions. Yet as the minutes stretched in 2 hours and hours in 2 days, hope began to waver. News of the missing submersible spread like wildfire. The world watched in collective anxiety as search efforts escalated into an unprecedented international rescue mission. Naval aircraft, remote-operated vehicles, and deep-sea sonar scanners converged on a remote patch of ocean. Families clung to fading hope while headlines turned the Titan into a global obsession. Could they still be alive, trapped in a steel capsule with just 96 hours of oxygen? The clock was ticking, and the ocean kept its secrets well. 4 days after the disappearance, on June 22nd, hope was extinguished. Search teams located debris from the Titan roughly 1,600 feet from the Titanic's bow. The vessel had suffered a catastrophic implosion and almost instantaneous collapse of the carbon fiber hull under the immense pressure of the deep. Death would have been mercifully swift. The 5 explorers, drawn together by a shared passion for discovery, had perished within moments of losing contact. The news sent shockwaves across the globe, but it was not merely the tragedy itself that captured attention, it was the story behind it. Stockton Rush, once seen as a visionary pioneer, became a controversial figure. His relentless drive to push boundaries had earned admiration, but it had also drawn sharp criticism. OceanGate's refusal to submit Titan to traditional safety certifications, its unconventional materials, and its experimental design raised questions about whether the tragedy had been avoidable. For many, this was not just an accident. It was a cautionary tale about arrogance, ambition, and the cost of ignoring warnings. Yet beyond the debate, there were the lives lost. Paul-Henri Nargeolet, a man who had devoted decades to studying Titanic's wreck, had met his end near the very ship that had defined his career. Hamish Harding, a symbol of wealth and daring exploration, left behind a family who had cheered his every bold endeavor. Shahzada and Sulman Dawood's deaths were especially haunting, the story of a father's dream and a son's courage shattered in an instant. Sulman, according to reports, had been hesitant to join the mission, nervous about the safety of the dive, but had agreed to accompany his father as a Father's Day gesture of love. That detail pierced hearts worldwide, transforming a tale of adventure into one of profound grief. The wreckage of Titan now lies alongside the remains of the Titanic, 2 tragedies separated by 111 years but forever linked in history. Both stories are cautionary epics about human ambition, technological limits, and the unforgiving power of the sea. Like the Titanic before it, Titan was not merely a vessel, it became a symbol. A reminder that nature remains unconquered, that the ocean's depths are as mysterious and perilous today as they were in 1912. In the aftermath, the tragedy sparked intense debates about private exploration, safety regulations, and the ethics of risk. Should innovation come at any cost? Should the wealthy few have the right to gamble their lives in untested machines to satisfy curiosity? Or is this pursuit of the unknown, however dangerous, a fundamental part of the human spirit? The Titan submersible tragedy endures as a haunting narrative of obsession and loss. 5 men descended into darkness to witness history with their own eyes, but their fate became history itself. And as the waves roll endlessly above their resting place, the story of Titan forces us to confront a truth as old as exploration itself, that humanity's thirst to reach the unreachable is both our greatest triumph and our greatest peril.